Hello, everyone. Welcome to our speaker series for leading STEAM educators and school leaders. My name is Chris Bennett, and I'm very pleased to be hosting this speaker series focused on the challenges that are facing K-12 school leaders in preparing young leaders for the fields of tomorrow. Today's session is titled The Business of Education, Leading for Success in K-12 Schools. And I'm pleased to shortly introduce you to our guest, Andre Nudelman, who's a global entrepreneur and also the entrepreneur in residence at Stanford University Graduate School of Education. In December, I'll also be in conversation with Prashant Loyalka, who's associate professor at the Stanford Graduate School of Education and a senior fellow at the Freeman Spogli Institute for International Studies at Stanford. He'll be talking about his work around examining and addressing inequalities in the education of children and youth, as well as on understanding and improving the quality of education globally. Before I introduce Andre, I'd also like to introduce myself and share briefly about Digital Media Academy. My name is Chris Bennett. I'm a longtime video game designer and an affiliate at Stanford Graduate School of Education. I'm also the engagement specialist at Digital Media Academy. Digital Media Academy was founded in 1999 on the campus of Stanford University, and it provides a comprehensive K-12 STEAM curriculum and consultation services to global schools and education leaders. Digital Media Academy's Leading STEM Schools program provides curriculum covering 6 subject areas: computer science, engineering, music and media, digital art, business, and game development. This public speaker series is brought to you by the Leading STEAM Schools team and is available globally through the Digital Media Academy schools community. So why are we here? This series aims to connect you with leading thinkers and changemakers to unlock the tools and knowledge needed to lead K-12 education change. And just a couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. We invite you to use the Q&A feature throughout the session, and we'll have some time at the end to take some questions from you. And we'll also be sharing the recording of this session with you in the next few days. Without further delay, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Andre Nudelman, our guest for today's session. Andre is entrepreneur in residence at Stanford Graduate School of Education. He's a global entrepreneur not only with Digital Media Academy, but also with International Comprehensive, which is a school quality improvement system, International Canadian Academy, a K-12 bilingual school franchising chain, and TeacherWit, a global platform for teachers to share experiences and improve their practices. I would like to invite Andre to join me now on screen.
Hi.
Hi, Andre. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
For our initial question, you have such an interesting path as a global entrepreneur to being an entrepreneur at residence at the Stanford Graduate School of Education. How did all this happen?
Well, happened at very early age. When I was 20 years old, my father passed away. So I had to start running the family business, then got involved in lots of businesses. And more recently, I moved to Canada 20 years ago. And then when I moved to Canada, I started working in education because I saw the quality of the Canadian public system. And when you compare, I'm originally from Brazil, so when you compare with the Brazilian system, it's so different. And then I said, it would be great to bring the Canadian system and best practices in education to the children, not only in Brazil, but globally. Then I was happy enough or lucky enough to have a partnership with a not-for-profit organization that was founded by the Canadian government. And then we create a school called Maple Bear that I run the operations in Latin America for 13 years. Then we sold the schools, and when we sold, we had 112 schools. Right now, they have globally around 400 schools, and they're all doing very well. The parents happy, teachers happy, students happy. So That's the most important thing. Beside that, after the the Maple Bear, then I acquired the Digital Media Academy in Silicon Valley and start developing programs for schools beside the operation of the summer camp in person at Stanford, Harvard, New York University, in the 20 best universities in North America. So that's, and then for my surprise, I was invited by the Graduate School of Education at Stanford to be the entrepreneur in residence. So here I am, very happy, and have the opportunity every day to meet with amazing people and learn more and more about education.
And that's actually when you appeared there is when I got a chance to meet you, and we got a chance to teach together, and looking forward to doing more of that together. Such a fascinating path. To dig into our questions, you've seen and observed spoken to so many schools worldwide. How would you measure success for a school?
Yeah, that's very subjective question, because we have schools in 125 countries. So when we were building the Maple Bear schools in Brazil, in Mexico, and other places, I always emphasized to the Canadian educators that we were not operating a Canadian school, but we were operating the best possible school in each location. Because the resources are different, the parents are not Canadian, the students not Canadian, the teachers not Canadian, the regulations are different. So everything was different. We were just using the best practices in education that are used in Canada very successfully. But then how to measure success? I would say the first measure is how happy the students are to go into the school. If they wake up in the morning and say, oh, I want to go to the school, that's very good measure of success. Second, the parents. It's a little bit harder to make all the parents happy, because that's always the major challenge. And also the team at the school. So how the teachers and all the team at the schools, how they are happy working for the school? Are they really proud of teaching what they are teaching? And then you have the marketing demand for higher grades. That's university admission, all this. That's not subjective, this is more objective. Is okay, the school place all these students here, there, Stanford, Harvard, who knows? So that's another measure of success. And some exams, evaluation exams that are, again, it's always, all evaluations are subject to criticism by some line of thinking. Some people don't like comparative analysis. They prefer to have individual analysis of each students, because each student have different capabilities.
You know, I'm thinking that whether you're a private or a public school, the role of reputation is so critical. And one of the big roles of school leadership is to kind of gain and keep that prestige. I'm curious, from your experience, what can be done to kind of continuously improve that prestige for a school, to really putting your brand out there?
Yeah, when we talk about private schools, of course, they are fighting for the students, so they have to keep this prestige very high, to have high demand, so they are capable of selecting students. So when you select students, of course, you have more chances to get outstanding results. And that's always a continuous fighting for the private schools. uh, what what they do, they not only offer the mandatory curricula, but they have lots of other activities after school, clubs, activities, project-based learning, and we try to bring uh, activities that are meaningful and in demand. And this is a shift that's happening right now in the demand from the schools. The schools now are demanding something that are really valuable, that address global issues, community issues, not just buy equipment and that get outdated very soon. But for the public schools, it's a little bit different because they are not fighting for enrollment. They already have a clientele, let's call. So, but there is the need or the wish of the educators and the administrators to provide the very best possible education for the children. And that's the most valuable set of values that the educators have. You know, educators not the best paid profession in the world, but they are passionate about what they do. They have a mission, and they really do as much as they can, going much further than expected to provide the best possible education for their kids. And that's what makes the schools improve, this continuous commitment.
Just as a follow-up, we hear metrics from schools like, 85% of our students get into top-tier universities. How important are metrics like that to you for school success?
Yeah, that's, in fact, that's the result, especially for private schools with all very expensive, fancy systems in place, IBs, etc., APs, and all the other available additional resources. They are always trying to place the students in the best universities. You mentioned 85% placement in top university. That's very hard to see. It's, I would say, it's a very rare case. Normally, this because the students are different, and the requirement of the top universities. For instance, here at Stanford, only the best students apply, and only 4% are accepted. So we recruit 1,700 students, undergrad, per year. So it's very fierce competition to be admitted. So, but the schools, of course, if they place students at Stanford, Harvard, or Ivy League, they normally don't say how many students they place in these places. They normally say that, oh, our students are admitted here, there. They normally have a list. Yeah. And it's important because the parents, as we are in a very competitive world, they want the kids, of course, to succeed, to go to the best universities. And that's is the system that's in place right now.
We've kind of seen that even in the best of times, teachers can feel isolated inside of schools. And the past couple of years, obviously, this has been exasperated so much by the global pandemic we've all been dealing with. How can we help teachers to feel less isolated in these critical roles that they're fulfilling?
Yeah, that's because normally in the schools, let's say if you have 2 grade 2 teachers or 3, then they are busy all day teaching, and they have very few opportunities to communicate with each other. And if they communicate with the schools, the teachers in the same school, they are doing more or less the same things. So it's very important for them to have access to other teachers from the same grade or same subject, where they can learn from these teachers, and they can also share what they are doing with these colleagues. So for that, we create something called Teacher Wit. That's a platform for teachers to share their experience and learn from each other. And it's been growing every day. There are groups that the teacher can join based on their interest. And this has been very, very successful and very good to see how the teachers interact with each other. That's one way of breaking the isolation. You have a more systemic. We also have some things for the schools to integrate with other schools, and for students to integrate with students from other schools that participate in our network.
So that's an interesting point that you're saying, that not only just getting the teachers and connected to teachers in other schools around the world, but just by getting the school itself, the students integrated with other schools is just naturally going to let the teachers get access to more teachers and more ideas out there. It sounds like what you're saying.
Yeah, and we always bring some common topics that are topics of global or local community interests. Because nowadays it doesn't make a lot of sense to have just some devices that have limited functions and not engaged in more meaningful projects. So our projects are very meaningful, and we are launching a competition for next year, also based in group project that engage schools and students and teachers.
It's interesting because it makes me think about, even when we're dealing with teachers who are isolated and getting access to more schools, not just locally and regionally, but around the world. When teachers start to get connected to other teachers globally, and the same thing with students, it sounds like that just immediately gives us more global knowledge, especially for our students, right? They're not just getting the things from their locality, their school district, or even their country, but they're being exposed to new ideas through other students and through other teachers in the world.
Well, that's the reality of life nowadays. Unfortunately, the schools, they are a little bit slow in react to the reality. So they have a system in place, a curricula to teach. The teachers are busy. So, but in the real world, the kids are playing with other kids online from everywhere in the globe. They are watching their preferred social media, and also with content from everywhere. So when they engage in projects with other students from other places, also broaden their horizon, not only in things that have limited value, like social media or just playing games, but they are exchanging ideas and learning from each other and teaching also other kids. That's very valuable.
Yeah, it sounds like the kind of concept of continuous learning and global learning is where education is going, even if some schools aren't quite prepared for it yet. We hear so much about culture and how culture is important in schools. From your experience, what does a really strong school culture look like? Like, what are the measures of good culture?
Yeah, again, measures uh, are, are objective. In this case, I would be more subjective. So, well, I'm going to give an example. I have a colleague here that was 10 years director of the STEP, Stanford Teacher Education Program. And they have a program that they teach teachers in other schools too. They have a collaboration and they prepare the teachers with this new education vision and in this education schools. And she told me, Andrea, the problem is they are, after they leave our course, they are super prepared. But once they enter in the school, they find a culture of the school, entrenched in the school, and they have to adapt to this existing culture. They cannot change the school. They quickly adapt, meaning they quickly unlearn what was taught and have to follow the way the schools are operating. So, just give an example, when we started the Maple Bear schools, the Canadian bilingual schools, our system were developed for new schools. So our franchisees have to open a new school, start with 35, 40 students in the first year, 70 students in the third, and grow slowly but sustainable. But then we implement the culture in the school since the beginning, and we send twice a year Canadian trainers and twice a year Canadian inspectors to do quality assurance. So we create, ingrain this culture in the schools. So every new teacher that enter in the school quickly adapt to the ingrained culture that's there. But it's very hard to shift the culture of existent school. And it's not that there is no willingness, but it's a system that's hard to break. And you can make an analogy. Why in the corporate world, when you have a merge of two companies, sometimes there is a cultural shock that make the merge unsuccessful because they are so different cultures that could not work together. And this happened, I believe, was Mercedes and Chrysler and Volkswagen and Ford, something like that, that they merge and then unmerge because it didn't work. Gillette bought Duracell. They thought it would be perfect because the sales guy go to the supermarket, take the order. Didn't work. They have to rehire the Duracell team because it was a completely different thing. So, yeah, schools are very solid, very ingrained because the teachers are there for a long time, the curricula established, and they always, they like what they do and the way they do. And it's a little bit hard to change. And that was one of the things when we decided in Digital Media Academy, we decided to create the program for the schools, the foundation courses to be used by the teachers in K-12, embedded in the curricula. The main obstacle we found was the resistance of the teachers that didn't want to teach technology. So they were afraid, they didn't have background. So we had to develop all these 30 courses in a way that it can be taught by any teacher without previous experience in technology. It has been very successful, and yeah, it's I'm very proud of the results.
You know, it sounds like you kind of talking about DNA as far as the culture, and when you start with a new school, it's easier to shape that DNA because you have more effect on it. But even if we're talking about, all these established schools, have you found small ways that schools can help to shift their culture a bit?
Yeah, the schools, they've been doing lots of things, have a lot of after school programs, lots of maker space. Robotics is something that they've been doing for a long time. But yeah, the problem with robotics that you have to change the equipment very often because get obsolete. And there are things. The pandemic caused a revolution because if you ask it 4 years ago, the schools, can you teach online? The kids not, oh, it's not possible. It's zero chance. But they were forced to adapt, and was I would say a 15-year revolution into, because now all the schools are prepared to teach online, to consider other forms. And what we have been experienced with our program is we have a huge demand. We only work with 50 schools per year in the leading STEAM schools in the world program. And we have hundreds, almost 1,000 schools requesting. So that's only show that there is a big interest in bringing technologies since the early grades, not only coding in the higher grades, but integrating technology, hands-on projects and project-based learning into the early grades.
When you were mentioning makerspaces and robotics, it made me think about how there are many challenges in implementing technology in schools. What do you see as the main challenges of doing this?
Well, besides the resistance of the teachers, if you have a maker space, normally it's a space that's not in the classroom. That's already a challenge. Then we've been talking to lots of schools that have maker space, but they don't know exactly what to do. The same thing, I'm going to do a parallel, a little bit out of the context, but the schools during the pandemic, they use Zoom, they use Microsoft, they use Google, but these are only means. These are not content. And what we provide is the content. So some people have the makerspace, but they don't have a framework for STEAM that define what should be taught at different age and how to implement that. So what do? We work with the school, our team, academic team, work with the school to define what's the best framework for the school, how to implement first year, second year, which grades. Then, of course, we will always start with the more enthusiastic teachers that they really want to experiment. And then after they do that, the other teachers will see the results and will also join. That's our experience. So, but the problem with robotics, as I said, is the obsolescence. And also, it's a little bit hard to put some meaning in the robotics other than participate in competitions, because what the students do, they make the robots go ahead, go back, throw something, pick up something. So it's very interesting. It's lots of schools are adopting and using, but we prefer to work with meaningful projects and address global issues.
And just to follow up on that one, schools spend so much money on technology. We discussed they don't always know how to use it. With the technology, where do you see the curriculum and the content fitting in with that?
Yeah, every time you talk about equipment, then you have very expensive things robotics, you go Lego, VEX, all these things, they cost money. Or if you go to a maker space, also the maker space is an expensive thing to build and to equip. So then our program is the foundation courses that we have, 30 foundation courses for K-12, they are based in free software. So most of the schools already have a Chromebook or a tablet for the students. It's just what they need. All our programs in the foundation courses, we have another 72 courses that are more advanced. The foundation courses, we use always free software. So there is no significant cost for the schools in adopting our program.
Thank you. We would ask this question to all the panelists and all of our guests. Give me a big blue sky, give me a positive, where do you see the future of education going? Right? I mean, you were literally, I know where you are, you're literally sitting in your office at Stanford Graduate School of Education. There's so much going on about the future there. Where do you see the future going?
Yeah, just one of the things I'm teaching is the design for learning at the D school, the design school at Stanford. And there are lots of discussions, and we are in contact every day with all these researchers and all these ideas and discussions about the future. You have very broad range of ideas. Predict the future is always hard, but there are some things happening. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, some people talk about a unified artificial intelligence run curricula that's always updated with the latest information. Some people talk about outstanding teachers making use of these programs in the schools. There are also lots of things about individualization and personalization of the learning pathway, where the students are continuously evaluated, and the following tasks are given in an individual manner, so the students will grow as much as they can. So, because when you have a uniformization of the teaching, some people don't get, some people are much more advanced, and so there is a inequality of capabilities, learning capabilities in different areas. Nobody's good at everything. So that's the objective of the researchers, is to find a way to provide the students the best possible learning outcomes in each area. So that's how I see the future. But one thing that I always tell students is that the future, we always think, self-driven cars will go in 3 years, all these cars will drive themselves, and everything we think is going to happen very soon. It'll take a little bit longer than we imagine. And I like to use an example, George Orwell's 1984. And if you go back in 1984, what he was imagined didn't happen. It's happening now, 40 years later. So the future takes a little bit longer than we imagine. The changes are slow. When you look back, looks like it was fast. But yeah, other thing that I always say is take very long time to pass very fast.
That's an interesting one. If I can kind of follow up on that, sometimes I see schools talking about how there's such a huge disruption with the pandemic. Everyone was forced online all at the same time. And then I kind of hear from some quarters that, well, that was just a 2 or 3 year span, and we're just going to go away from that. We don't need to do the Zoom anymore. We don't need to be online centric anymore. We're going to go straight to 100% in person. Do you see that as being viable, or do you think there's always, or do you think we've kind of opened things up for the opportunity for blended learning to really helping the student?
Well, when we talk about broad sense, so global issues, of course, there are places in this can be very useful, but nothing replaces the in-person experience, the socialization, the challenges of the relationship with your colleagues in the classroom, with the teacher, and with the discipline of time. So the pandemic forced a situation that's not desirable. Is so not desirable that affect significantly the learning process, and the students are very behind in their learning process. So I'm not against technology, of course. I'm 100% in favor, but the right usage, Our foundation course, there are lots of activities that are not based on screen. It's based on activities with classroom materials. So of course, we have activities in the screen too, but to mix all these things, and nothing replace the in-person interaction for the students. In our case here, it's okay, but of course, if we could have the people with us face to face, the interaction will be even better.
Thank you. We're getting some questions in from the audience, and we have time for 1 or 2 of them. Here's a good one. School enrollment is such a huge challenge, and we want to promote more students to join our school. We want our students to align with leading organizations and schools. What opportunities are out there to align with international organizations like Stanford University or Digital Media Academy?
Yeah, that's the pandemic also generates for private schools. They lost some students. The enrollment suffer for obvious reasons, because when you had online learning, no parents want to put a children in the kindergarten to learn online. So for sure, at our school, Maple Bear at the time, they lost, I would say, 10% of the students. It's a huge impact, but the students returned. So, but for the schools, the parents, when we talk about technology, for instance, the parents want the schools to teach technology for the kids. And the kids are engaged in technology every day. They use the cell phone, they use the tablet, they use their computers. So the sooner they get educated in different aspects of technology, the better. So they do a better use of technology. They get more, how can I say, digital savvy. And that's what we intend to do. That's our objective with our programs. And the schools, when they join our program, they also differentiate themselves from other schools. And they show the parents that they are engaged in a meaningful and well-structured program.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more short question. We have someone saying, we find it hard to recruit qualified teachers to deliver STEAM subjects like computer science and design. What do you recommend for those kind of schools?
Yeah, there are, well, first, as I said before, the foundation course that we developed, 30 courses for K-12, they can be taught by any teacher, embedded in the curriculum or not. But if the schools want to go to a more, let's say, advanced courses, it's not possible to teach 3D animation using Maya software if you don't know how to do it. It's not possible to teach electronic music if you don't know how to do it. So the schools really have to have a good plan in place. That's why we work with the schools to define what is the best plan for implementation, because you have to take into consideration if there is availability of instructors to teach what you want to teach. And that's part of our consultation process with the schools.
Thank you. Well, Andre, we've already come to the end of our available time today. I want to thank you so much for sharing your expertise with us.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy to share a little bit of my experience, and I look forward to learn from the schools more and more. And thank you for the opportunity.
And I also want to thank again Digital Media Academy for sponsoring this series. You can find out more about Digital Media Academy for Schools program on the website at digitalmediaacademy.org/schools, or contact us anytime at info@digitalmediaacademy.org. And as I mentioned earlier, I will be in conversation with Professor Prashant Loyalka in just a few weeks. We're going to be talking about inequality in education and improving the quality of education globally. Please keep an eye out for that one. It's just going to be a great session. On behalf of Digital Media Academy, I'm Chris Bennett. I want to thank everyone who was able to join us today for this session. We wish you a fantastic rest of your day. Take care, and thank you so much.